So I'll explain why because some devotees who were attending our Gopinath discussion, we actually did start a course, uh, rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and I covered some 8-9 discussions. We had 8-9 weeks, but then subsequently, when this whole lockdown started, we had to stop it, and we were trying to restart it again. But then some devotees requested, because I had, in the meantime, I had already offered this course, Rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and its sequel also, 2 sequels. Um, uh, you know, I did offer Demystifying Raganuga Bhakti, and about Bhava and Prema Bhakti also I had offered a course. So, and many of our group members who used to attend the Tuesday classes, they mentioned that they had already listened to those courses. So they requested that we start a new course. That is why I could not, that's why we decided to start this new course on Manas Siksha. So that's like a brief explanation why we suddenly started Manas Siksha while one other course was pending in between. So that is the reason we started Manas Siksha now. So I will give a brief uh, description of this book. But before doing that, uh, actually, Vrajvinod Sham Prabhu shared with me, Vrajvinod Sham Prabhu, that he is the one who is more or less like coordinating the course. He is doing the main thing, getting the registrations and sending them Zoom links and all those things. I am just coming and speaking. So I thank him very much for this, valuable service. So he mentioned that almost like 65 devotees had registered. So I thought maybe it would be about maximum 20-25 devotees. So 65 devotees is a big number, but still, so we have to have some rules in order to keep it as less chaotic as possible. So I discussed with him and we came up with some protocols that we will try to follow in order to facilitate uh, what we are trying to do. So one thing is that I have, because I am the host, I have muted all of you. So please forgive me for that. Not that I want to hog all the limelight and not let you speak at all. So that's not my intention at all. For those of you who have attended my Tuesday evening discussions at Chowpatty, uh, you may know that I prefer having a complete dialogue kind of discussion rather than myself speaking all the time. I don't prefer it at all. But still, with such a big number of devotees attending, we need to have some protocol, otherwise devotees will not feel very enthused. So I have by default muted everyone. So what we decided, instead of having a classroom type setup where anytime anyone can raise their hands, they can share some points or they can ask a question or start a discussion or disagree with some points that were made, whatever. But now we can't afford to have such a kind of discussion. So what we will try to do is I will present something for about 20-25 minutes, and then I will open the floor for comments, questions. You can either choose to type your questions in the chat box, or you can, those of you who are little more um, familiar with Zoom, you can raise your hands, not in your video, but there is a provision where you can raise your hands and I will be able to see it. So I will unmute you during the question and answer session only. So I kindly request, if you choose not to raise your hands during the, when I'm presenting, that would be good. During question and answer session, I will definitely, we will entertain all questions, comments, everything, and when everyone is satisfied, then we will move on. And for those of you who don't wish to ask your questions over the over your on the microphone, you can type your questions. That is also fine. Or if you have a comment also, you can type. I will constantly be looking at the chat box also. If you want a comment, quick comment, just type. You may say like, oh, your voice is not audible. You can type. uh, you are stretching it too long, go fast, whatever it may be, you can just type it on the chat box, and I will take note of it. So those are some of the simple ground rules that we will try to follow. I am recording uh, every session, so I will try to upload. I will try to create a mm, email address and then put it in the uh, Google Drive and send you the links. So those of you who could not attend the complete discussion, or you could not attend the discussion at all, uh, you know, Vradvinod Sham Prabhu will send you the links, and you can go and watch the video if you feel like. So and so these are few things that I wanted to share before we actually start the session today. So some of you may know about this book Manas Siksha. Some of you may have some faint idea. Some of you who had attended the online courses or the Tuesday discussions in Chowpatty, I might have shared a few verses and some discussions from Manas Siksha. So you may have some idea about Manas Siksha, but many may not have. So I will give a brief introduction to this book. So this book was written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And Raghunath Das Goswami basically got the inspiration for presenting this book from Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. And Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami was instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on this subject matter. So basically, the teaching is coming directly from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through Swarup Damodar Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. And interestingly, this book is very similar in nature to the Nectar of Instruction written by Srila Rupa Goswami. I'm sure most of you must have completed your Bhakti Shastri, and you must have, or even otherwise, you must have studied Nectar of Instruction, or at least glanced through it, or at least you know what is the nature of the book, Nectar of Instruction. So, Nectar of Instruction takes a person right from the stage of Shraddha to Prema gradually. In just 11 verses, it takes a person from Shraddha to Prema. And if you see our Manas Siksha also, it has 11 verses. And it also takes a person from Shraddha to Prema. Of course, the 12th verse of Manas Siksha is Falashruti. So the Falashruti of Manas Siksha is that if you, I'll first tell the Falashruti so that you may get little inspiration to hear this subject matter further. The Falashruti that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami says is that if you chant the 11 verses of Manas Siksha loudly in a sweet voice, following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. He says Rupa Goswami and his followers, or Rupa Goswami and his associates, he says. So which means, and then he says, while trying to understand the deeper meaning of these 11 verses, if you do these 3 things, then he says, then you will get an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan eternally. So basically what Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is promising is that in these 11 verses is the means to attain Krishna Prema. Just 11 verses. We may wonder how come in just 11 verses one could reach the stage of Krishna Prema. That is why This book is one of the books which has been widely commented upon by many acharyas. A prominent commentary being Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself has written two commentaries to this book. The first commentary is a prose commentary by the name Bhajana Darpan commentary, a mirror of your own bhajan. So if someone holds a mirror in front of you, you can see how you are dressed, how do you look, or whatever, whether you have applied a tilak or not. Sometimes you forget to apply the tulsi, whatever. But if someone holds a mirror in front of you, you can see who you are. Similarly, the Bhajan Darpan commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur indicates that it's a mirror of your own bhajan. See how you are practicing. Is this practice going to take you towards Krishna Prem, or do you have to change something? So basically, the Bhajan Darpan is a very powerful commentary, and every subsequent commentary that we will be studying is based on this primary commentary, Bhajan Darpan commentary written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And subsequently, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also wrote a poetic commentary which is called as Shri Manasiksha Bhasha. So in which in 4 to 5 verses, generally in 4 verses, he completely summarizes the prose commentary. Whatever important points he has made in the prose commentary, he summarizes this in his poetic commentary. So this is Manasiksha Bhasha. So these will be the primary material for us. And also, I will be following this book, which has been, I think, Torchlight Publishing has published this book. I'm trying to make PowerPoints based on this book. So this has Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Manasiksha Bhajan Darpan commentary. It has his Manasiksha Bhasha commentary, along with very beautiful illustrations, very beautiful paintings and illustrations of each and every verse. And it also has very elaborate, very thought-provoking commentaries of the contemporary acharyas like Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj, Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, Srila Jayadvait Swami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivigyan Goswami Maharaj, and Srimati Urmila Mataji. So, like some 5 contemporary acharyas have also commented. Those commentaries have also been added. So we will be discussing from that also. Actually, I discussed with a couple of devotees about how we could take this discussion further. I suggested either we could do a overview, but little elaborate overview, in which case we may complete this course in about 10-11 weeks, or I suggested that we could do it little elaborately, not really have a time frame of completion, because anyway this is not a certificate course. So we could go a little bit elaborately discussing all the commentaries, because many valuable points are there. So both the devotees suggested that maybe we could do little elaborately, because ultimately we are here to learn not theory but practice, because we have very little time. We might as well know how to perfectly practice and perfect our lives. So I also, and that's where my heart is also, we could have a forum where we can discuss it in detail, you know have nice discussions, churning. And through churning, actually, if you see these 3 points in the Falashruti that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami mentions, first he says is, you should try to follow in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami and his associates, which means the first aspect is to be chaste to the parampara. The second aspect is loudly chant and sing and memorize and try to internalize. This is the second instruction. And the third instruction he says is uh, that he says, and try to understand the deep internal meanings of these instructions. Otherwise, each of these instructions is like a sutra. It has to be unzipped and elaborated by the acharyas. So basically, there are two ways in which we can follow this third instruction to understand the deeper meaning of this. One is to try to understand the depth of each of these verses from the commentaries of the acharyas, allow them to clear the path for us, then so that we can run dhavan nimilyavanetre naskalen napade. This path of bhakti is such a royal road which is very clean and wonderful that you can run with your eyes closed, but only if we have allowed the acharyas to pave that way for us. Otherwise, it is only our illusion that we can run with our eyes closed. Then if the acharyas have not paved that way for us, if we run with our eyes closed, we are guaranteed we will go and fall into a deep dark well. So one understanding of trying to go in depth and understanding these 11 instructions is to understand them uh, through the illuminations of the acharyas, both the ancient acharyas and the current acharyas. And second is like what we are trying to do now, uh, have discussion amongst equals. So let's come together, discuss, share our reflections, realizations, and in this way, through this churning, very beautiful understandings will come forth, and it will nourish all of us. So we have started it. Let it take its time. Even if we can do one verse very nicely, that is very good, uh, because we all are dependent on each other's understanding, reflection, and realization so that we can get nourished. So let us not rush through this thing. So in that case, then at the end of 11 verses, uh, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami promises that you will have Krishna Prem in your heart, but provided you follow in these three instructions nicely. So that is like a and as I mentioned that this is one book which will take you from the stage of Shraddha to Prema, just like as we saw Nectar of Instruction does that. So Nectar of Instruction, if you see, Srila Rupa Goswami starts the Nectar of Instruction by indicating that do you want to become a world Acharya? Prithivimsta Sishyat. Do you want to make disciples all over the world? Do you want people to come and just offer Dandavat Pranam to you, offer their lives to you? Who does not want? It's a very attractive proposal. Even if someone recognizes your presence, even if someone recognizes our presence, we feel so good. And how much good we would feel if everyone in this world is coming and offering their obeisances unto us. So Rupa Goswami says, do you want to become a world Acharya? You say, yes. He says, very simple. Follow these 6 steps. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jihva vegam, udaropastha vegam, etan veganyo vishaheta dira, sarvanapi mam prativimsta sishyat. Just control these 6 urges. The urge to speak, the urge to, your mind may be thinking too many things, your ability, you should have the ability to control the urge of the mind. You become angry, just control your anger. And you feel like eating something, just control it. And then your stomach is craving for something, control it. Similarly, control the urge of your genitals. So just control these 6 things, and the whole world will be at your lotus feet. You say, wow, just 6 things and then I'll become the world Acharya. But then when you start following it, you realize it's so difficult. Even one urge to control becomes extremely difficult. So then we make it dejected. So Rupa Goswami said, wait, don't get dejected. I will tell you how to reach this stage. So he says, first you have to fix your lifestyle. Your lifestyle should be such that um, it is conducive to control the 6 urges. So what is a conducive lifestyle? He says, first I'll tell the don'ts. He says, atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyamcha shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. He says, if you control the 6 things, control in the sense, he says atyahara. Atyahara means whenever you get an opportunity to eat, let's take the basic meaning of atyahara. Whenever you get an opportunity to eat, if you always tend to overeat, then he says you will not be able to control the urge of um, the tongue. Because he says the first 6 things mentioned in the first verse, vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jihva vegam, udaropastha vegam, these 6 are conditional urges. So conditional urges means, like now, just before the class started, I had my dinner because I knew that by the time the discussion ends, it will be 9 o'clock, it will be too late to eat. So I had nice dinner. So now I don't have the urge to eat. I don't have the urge of hunger. So hunger is a conditional urge. Once it gets pacified, then you don't have the urge for hunger. Similarly, the urge for tasting something, just like every time I eat a good hearty meal, I get a craving for eating something sweet, you know, just to uh, madhurena samapayet, to end with something sweet. But once I eat a small piece of sweet, that craving is gone. So that jihva vegam also, once it is pacified, it is not there. Similarly, the urge of anger, it's not that we are constantly angry. Sometimes we get a uh, agitation and we become angry. But once we have blasted and satisfied, then the urge for anger is also gone. So in this way, all these 6 urges are conditional urges. But if you have to address the conditional urges, Srila Rupa Goswami says, you have to make certain constitutional changes. So in the first verse of first 2 verses, sorry, the second and third verse of Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about the constitutional changes that one needs to make with respect to one's lifestyle so that one becomes equipped to deal with the conditional urges. Like for example, um, I went to a boarding school, uh, military school. So every single and you know in these schools, there is a very rigorous entrance exams, physical interviews, and physical examinations, physical tests, and everything before they take you in. Because basically, the government of India is investing a lot in these boys who have got into this school, hoping that uh, they would graduate and become uh, and join the armed forces and become officers. So basically, therefore, the government of India invests a lot in the students who enroll, and there is a very rigorous selection procedure. So in the 7 years that we spend there, um, we every student is trained in such a way that psychologically, physically, mentally, and in every other way, and in terms of skill sets. By the time the person graduates from the school, is ready to serve in the armed forces. But it takes 7 years of training, and 7 years of training is nothing. After 7 years, you actually enter into National Defense Academy, and then you get trained day in and day out, physically, again, physically, emotionally, mentally, and with respect to skills, you are trained day in and day out, so that you are war ready. Anytime, either China wages a war towards India, or it may be Pakistan or whatever, you are ready. But if these many years of training is not there, then suddenly if someone tells, some ordinary person, pick up the rifle, come, let's go to the war, uh, he will be just blown away. He can't even, if you don't know how to use a rifle, you'll break your collarbone, actually, literally, just by shooting one shot. Your collarbone will break, because you are not trained. So therefore, uh, if if you are, just as they say, if you sweat in peace, uh, uh, then you will bleed less in war. uh, so while the war situation is not there, if you are equipping yourself, so basically you must have the internal wiring uh, to face the conditional challenges. So the conditional challenge, these are real challenges. This is the battlefield. You are facing Vacho Vegam, Manasa Vegam, Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udara Vegam, Upasta Vegam. When these urge comes, to tolerate becomes very difficult. But just as a soldier is trained day in and day out in basic lifestyle things, um, which which fine tunes him physically, mentally, emotionally, in all ways to be battle ready. So Srila Rupa Goswami gives the training regimen, day-to-day training regimen, in the second and third verse, because in the first verse he has declared the battle. So in the next many verses, he is going to make us battle ready. How are we going to face the battle? How are you going to be ready to face the battle? So that's what he is going to do. In the second verse, he says, second and third verse are constitutional changes, which means day in and day out you have to practice them. Like, for example, if an opportunity to eat is there, okay, someone says audio volume is not sufficient, can it be slightly increased? Okay, so I don't know, do others also feel the same? Is the audio volume not sufficient? No. No means, is it sufficient or is it not sufficient? I don't know. Volume is fine, says Pran Gopinath Prabhu. Audio is fine. Okay, so maybe the devotee can check his speaker volume. Maybe it's not sufficient. Okay, thank you. I see one hands up. I will just uh, pause after a few minutes, and then I will take your question, but you can keep your hands up, and so that I will remember. Okay, so in the second verse, he says, okay, if you have an opportunity to eat, if you keep on overeating every single time, then you are constitutionally making yourself incapable of facing the battle of Jihva Vegam. When the urge to eat comes, you will not be able to say no. So therefore, how to become internally wired to face the battle of Jihva Vegam? He says, Atyahar, stop Atyahar, which means every time you get an opportunity to eat, eat limited. As Prabhupada says, half a stomach food, 1/4 stomach water, and keep 1/4 for air for easy circulation. Of course, This is very easy to practice when the prasadam is not tasting that good. But when the prasadam is tasting good, then it's difficult to practice. We all know that, but this is something we can practice day in and day out. Similarly, he tells the 6 principles: Atyahara, Prayasascha, Prajalpo, Niyamagraha, Janasangascha, Laulyamcha. So these 6 things, if you consciously avoid on a day-to-day basis, then slowly you can overcome. Then he says 6 favorable things: Utsahan, Nischayat, Dhairyat, Tattat Karma Pravartanat, Sangatyagat, Satovritte, Shadbir Bhaktir, Prasidhyati. These 6 things: be enthusiastic, and how to develop that enthusiasm on a day-to-day basis, how to be patient on a day-to-day basis, on what basis can we develop this patience, and determination, how to uh, endeavor with determination by killing the doubts which come during our practice of Krishna consciousness. So these various things Srila Rupa Goswami mentions on a day-to-day basis. If you cultivate these things, then you are fairly battle ready when the battle comes. But the point is, if you to practice these 6 plus 6, 12 things day in and day out alone is very difficult. Ekaki amar nahi paye bala harinama sankirtane. So it is very difficult to practice alone. So therefore you need the company of like-minded devotees in order to practice such a rigorous lifestyle that Srila Rupa Goswami is suggesting. So how to get that association of devotees, or association of such people who are inclined to practice this lifestyle with you? So Rupa Goswami in the 4th verse says, Dadati pratigrunnati guhyamakyati pritchati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam. The 4th 6. In the 1st verse he told 6 symptoms of a world acharya, and then he said, in order to get those 6 symptoms of a world acharya, follow the 6 do's and avoid the 6 don'ts. But you can't follow the 6 do's and avoid the 6 don'ts day in and day out if you don't have good company. So how to develop the good company? By these 6 exchanges. So dadati pratigrunnati guhyamakyati pruchati bhunkte bhojayate cheva. You know these 6 exchanges: giving gifts, accepting gifts in return, offering prasadam, receiving prasadam in return, and sharing one's heart and confidence, and hearing with lot of empathy from the other person who, when he feels inspired to share his heart. So through these 6 exchanges, you can develop company, and in that company you can follow the 6 do's and 6 don'ts very nicely. Now these 6 exchanges should be with whom? So Srila Rupa Goswami says, with 3 kinds of devotees. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantamesham Shushrushaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hridam ipsita sangalabhya. So he says that 3 kinds of devotees: the Uttamadhikari, Kanishtadhikari, and the Madhyamadhikari. For a Kanishtadhikari who is willing to, who has just started practicing the path of devotional service, you show your respect from within your heart, and with such a person you have the 6 exchanges. But if you are more fortunate, you may get the association of a person who has become qualified for initiation. Dikshasti chet. Yes, he has taken up initiation and he is worshipping the deities. Bhajantamisham. So if you are more fortunate, you will get the association of a Madhyamadhikari. So you have these 6 exchanges with that Madhyamadhikari. But if you are really fortunate, you may get the association of a Uttamadikari. Shushrooshaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hridamipsita sangalabhya. He says if you get the association of that person, bhajana vigyam, who is perfectly qualified to perfectly practice the path of devotional service, who knows the science of devotional service, who is practicing that science nicely, and his heart is completely free of the tendency to criticize anyone. So if you have the if you are fortunate enough, you may get the association of such a person. So in that case, he says, aspire to have his association, and whenever you have his association, serve him with lot of love and affection, and have these 6 exchanges. So he says, if you do this, then you will be able to follow the lifestyle very nicely. But then he says, but then as soon as you look for a companion to practice, or companions, a group of companions to practice, when you look at them, first what you will see is their conditioning only. He says. But if you get stuck up in their conditioning, then you will not be able to derive any benefit out of their association. Just like when you go to a dham, it is said that the dham is completely covered with the wheel of Maya. Therefore, if we don't see the dham through our ears, what we will see is only the wheel of Maya, and we will not see anything else. So similarly, the means to approach devotees that Srila Rupa Goswami says is drishtair, swabhavajanitair, vapushascha doshair, na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashet, gangambaso na kalubudbudafena pankair, brahmadravatvam adhigachati na neeradharmair. He says, just like if you see the flowing Ganga in Mayapur, during the rainy season, she looks literally brown in color. And it's filled with a lot of mud, bubbles, and all such foam and everything indicating the dirt. But even though the water may be dirty, but the purifying potency of Ganga, as in Bhagavatam, so many places mentioned, Swardhunyaponu Sevaya. Swardhuni is Ganga, just like how by taking bath in Ganga, it purifies one of complete all kinds of sinful activities, and it gives a person, it takes a person closer to Krishna Prem if one does it um, with lot of faith. As Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions that तुलसी देखी जुड़ाए प्राण माधव तोषणी जानी. I'm sorry. He says that Dekiya Charana Sidu Dekiya Ganga Sukana Sima Pai. In the bhajan Shuddha Bhakati Charana Renu, Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu, he says, Charana Sidu Dekiya Ganga Sukana Sima Pai. When I see Ganga Devi, I remember that she is the foot wash of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that consciousness, when I look at Mother Ganga flowing through Swananda Sukhada Kunj, where in Godromudvip, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was staying, he says, I am seeing Ganga flowing and I feel so happy. Because he is seeing her not just as water, but because she is seeing her as the foot wash of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he feels so happy. So in that mood, when one approaches Ganga, she completely purifies that person. So therefore, even though, but externally that Ganga may be brown and filled with lot of filth. So he says that, look, I know you are looking for good company. There is lot of good company available provided you see beyond their conditioning, you see the person beyond their conditioning. But if you get stuck up in their conditioning, then even though they can be very good company, but you will not see them as very good company. Therefore, that is one very interesting warning that Srila Rupa Goswami gives there. And then he says, okay, after Sadhu Sangha comes Bhajana Kriya. In the 7th verse, he says, in this association, when you start practicing bhakti, he says, Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya, Pittopatapta Rasanasya Narochikano, Kintvadarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta, Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tadgada Mula Hantri. He says that, look, I know you have just started practicing Krishna consciousness. I know you are looking for some taste, but be reasonable. Don't expect taste first. You start practicing devotional service steadily, then taste will follow. So he says the main pitfall in a sadhaka's life is that he expects taste before steadiness. He thinks the day I get taste in Krishna consciousness, from that day onwards I will practice it so steadily. But Rupa Goswami says, I am sorry, you got the whole order wrong. It is Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, and then Ruchi. He says first comes Nishta, then comes Ruchi, which means first comes steady practice, and as a result of that steady practice, Krishna will reward Ruchi, taste in the process. So therefore, don't expect taste in the process before you endeavor for steady practice of devotional service. And he says, look, I understand in the beginning, Pittopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu. Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes will be very bitter because your tongue is jaundiced with all kinds of material contaminations. Your senses are jaundiced. But Kintu Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta. But with great respect and regularity, if you practice the process, gradually those conditionings will go away and you will start tasting the real nectar of the holy name, the holy Krishna Katha, and all of that. So that is the instruction that he gives in the 7th verse. The very valuable instruction for a sadhaka. Don't expect taste before steadiness. So if you don't have taste for the process, we should ask, are we trying to practice it steadily despite not having the taste? Like that. Then in the 8th verse he says, now that you have reached the stage of taste, ruchi, now you are ready to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis. Tan nama rupa charitadi sukirtananu smrityor kramena rasana manasi niyojya tishtan vraje tadanuraga jananugami kalam nayet tadakilam iti upadesha saram. He says the essence of all advice is to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, but you need the qualification of the first 7 verses. And then in the 8th verse, you become qualified to practice Raganuga Sadhana by following in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis. Tan nama rupa charitadi sukirtananu smrityor kramena rasana manasi niyojya. First engage the senses and gradually you will engage your mind also in following in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis. And in this way, when you start following the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, then you will become qualified to reach the stage of Bhava and Prema, at which stage you can go and reside in Radha Kund. Vaikunta Janito Vara Madhupuri, Vaikunta Janito Vara Madhupuri, Tatrapi Rasotsavad, Vrindaranya Mudarapani Rabanad, Tatrapi Govardhanam, Radha Kundamihapi Gokulapater, Premamrita Plavanat, Kuryadasya Virajato Giritate Sevam Viveki Nakaha. In the ninth verse, Srila Rupa Goswami says that Vaikunta Janito Vara Madhupuri. Mathura is more glorious than even Vaikunta. Why? Because Krishna was born in Mathura. Janito. Tatrapi Vrindaranyam. And amongst all the, in the Mathura Mandal, the most glorious is Vrindavan. Why? Rasotsavat, because the Ras Leela happened in the 12 forests of Vrindavan. And in the whole of the 12 forests of Vrindavan, Tatrapi Govardhanam. Govardhan is most glorious. Why? Udarapani Ramanad, because he sat on the little finger of Krishna for 7 days and 7 nights. So therefore, it is more glorious. And in the area of Govardhan, Radha Kunda Mihapi Gokulapater Premamrita Plavanat. The liquid love of Radha and Krishna is filled in the Radha Kund. Radha Kund is filled with the liquid love of Radha and Krishna. So therefore, in the whole area of Govardhan, Radha Kund is the most glorious. Kuryadasya virajato giritate sevam vivekinakaha. So who is that intelligent person who would refuse to worship and serve this Radha Kund, provided you have practiced the first 8 verses, and then in the 9th verse he takes you to Radha Kund, and so on. In this way, very gradually, nectar of instruction takes you from the stage of a very basic Shraddha to Prema. So now one may ask, hey, but you started this whole thing by promising that I will become the world Acharya. So someone may say, okay, so now that he has reached the stage of Bhava and Prema, now you say, Prabhu, now you have achieved Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udaropasta Vegam. Now we are ready to crown you as the next world Acharya. And the person says, what? Because he has established a relationship with Krishna, he feels, why are you wasting my time? What will I do becoming the world Acharya? Let me just, please don't disturb me. I'm happy serving Radha and Krishna here in Vrindavan. So therefore it was just Rupa Goswami's bait. You want to become the world Acharya? That was Rupa Goswami's bait. Because the purpose of life is not to become world Acharya. The purpose of life is to develop love for Krishna. But if you say you will develop love for Krishna, maybe no one may be interested. But everyone wants followers. So in this way, gradually Rupa Goswami tricks you and takes you till Krishna Prem. And at the end of it, you are not even thinking about Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udaropasta Vegam, because there are better things to think about. We are not thinking about how can I control my tongue, my anger, my mind, and all these things. No, we are not bothered about that. So why, you may be wondering, is this a course on nectar of instruction or Manas Siksha? Yes, it is a course on Manas Siksha, but I am just trying to draw the parallel between the two books, Nectar of Instruction and Manas Siksha, because Manas Siksha is a very similar book, and those of you who have already studied Nectar of Instruction, you will be surprised to what detail that Srila Rupa Goswami goes, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami goes in Manas Siksha, just pulling out those anarthas and just showing it to us. Look, how are you going to address it? And he is not going to leave us that way. He is going to give solutions also, how you can actually overcome them. So actually these two books are very, very complementary books, I would say. Very complementary books. once we complete this course, you will realize that how they beautifully complement each other. They are very similar nature. Mm. So I will not, just like we went through an overview of nectar of instruction, I will not immediately go through an overview of Manas Siksha, because of course we are going to do a very brief overview. We will be reading from Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj's overview of this book, but I don't really want to break that element of surprise and eagerness, because if everything is revealed beforehand, then there is no fun actually. Just like if you go to watch a horror movie and someone tells you, what is going to happen, at climax, and then you might as well not go and mm, watch the movie only. You have just completely broken all the thrill in that whole movie. So of course we are not going to Manas Siksha is definitely not a horror movie that we are going to watch, but still the element of surprise I want to maintain. So I will not completely divulge what we are going to see, but just to give you an idea of the nature of this book, I took you through quickly took you through Nectar of Instruction. And just like uh, at the end of Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami took you to Radha Kund and made you qualified to worship Radha and Krishna and Radha Kund. Similarly, at the end of the 11 verses of Raghunath Das Goswami's Manas Siksha, he will gradually take you by hand and literally drag you to Krishna Prem. This is what this book is meant to be. Uh, so, therefore, we chose this book so that we could discuss. We could relive our Nectar of Instruction days, um, and the Bhakti Shastri days, and we could go a little more deeper and try to understand how we can together march towards the higher and higher stages of Krishna consciousness. So at this point, I will pause, and I see a few hands up. I see a few questions here in the chat box. So I'm pausing now. This is official discussion point or Q&A session. So you can either raise your hands or you can type your questions in the chat box. I'll first read the questions in chat box. The first question is, Prabhu, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and I'll be uploading it and sending you the links. Second, Navdweep Chandra Prabhu is asking, someone is not completely in steady practice, but there is taste given despite not so steady in practice. How is that? Yeah, of course, taste is not um, black and white. Uh, there are many shades of gray. Uh, there is, uh, but the more one's practice becomes steadier, that taste will become more deep rooted and fixed. So therefore, Nishta is not one at one point. Till yesterday I was in Anartha Nivritti. Today I have reached Nishta. It's not like that. So it is as and when our practice becomes little by little more and more steady, then the taste that we develop in the process is more like that. He experiences something which helps him to continue with faith on path. Example I can think of is Narada Muni. Not sure if it is correct example. Of course, Narada Muni's presentation of his life in Srimad Bhagavatam is an extremely fast forward presentation. So you really don't understand what came first, what came next. In 1 verses, 3 4 stages were covered by Srila Suta Goswami. So it's a very, very rapid fire presentation of Narada Muni's life. So, but definitely we should understand that it was a gradual development, even though it was quite rapid compared to maybe the pace at which we are progressing in our spiritual lives. But nevertheless, it was also gradual. Okay, like that. So okay, and I see the hands of Aranya Vihari Prabhu. So I will unmute him so that he can ask his question. Unmute. Okay, I'm sorry. Whom did I unmute? Aranya Vihari Prabhu. Prabhuji, I have unmuted you. So if you can unmute yourself and speak. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhu, I can hear you.
Okay. Prabhuji, thank you so very much for this wonderful presentation. So, after listening to uh, a kind of a preface to the discussion, I have few questions in my mind, but prominently two. So, one is you said a conditional battle or a conditional challenge. Okay. So, like hunger or maybe urge of senses, other senses, is a conditional battle or a conditional challenge.
So I will just
So,
clarify before you continue with your question. When I
okay.
say
Sure.
conditional, I am not telling conditioning. Conditioning is different. Conditional means at a particular point you get that urge. When that urge is pacified, no longer that urge is present. So in that
So
sense, it
that
is
means we can
conditional.
say temporary.
Yeah, temporary you can say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that is clarified now. That is one. And second is about the association. When you told about the association,
Mhm.
so what I can see the discussion, the way you are taking the discussion. So I see there are three books which are connected. One,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, Letter of Instruction. Second, Manashiksha. Third is even Madhuri Kadambi. So
Yeah.
even that is also very much in line to the talk you are taking with us.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the association,
Mhm.
association, Chakravarti Pat Thakur says that it should be Sajatiya and Snigdha.
Hmm.
But in an institution like ISKCON, where we have multiple gurus, multiple disciples, different moods, within even the God brothers and God sisters, there are different kind of moods. So Jatiya, in a typical understanding, generally what I understand is a kind of a mood or a way of executing Krishna consciousness.
Right.
So, so
Yeah.
in that case, sometimes what happens that I mean, my question basically, the basic question is how to really understand that yes, this is actually Sajatiya, because what happens, we are under the same counselor, maybe, or maybe a same guru, but maybe after some time we realize that no, he is having some different thought process, I have some different thought process, and instead of a snigdha, it becomes a, I mean, I should not use this word bitter, but a kind of indifferent or oblivious behavior to each other sometimes. So, how to maintain the snigdha, I mean, the softness in the relationships, as well as to understand that yes, who is Sajati and who is not with me.
So Sajatiya is very easy to find out. So if you're comfortable, you see a natural comfort. Sometimes I feel that kind of a natural comfort with some devotee who may not be uh, my god brother also. Uh, like in fact, it is mentioned about Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. While he was staying in Vrindavan, of course, he was associating with the six Goswamis. But apart from the six Goswamis, one of the best friends of Raghunath Das Goswami was the son of Vallabhacharya, who was from a different sampradaya only. So if you see that um, that Sajati Ashay means you can see that you both share a love for the um, same kind of uh, limb of devotional service it could be, or a same mood of service, or you relish the same thing, or you share a similar definition of success in devotional service. Hmm. So in that way, naturally when you see that person, you feel like really attracted, and you associate with him. So it need not be your counselor, it need not be your counselee brother or sister, whomever it may be. It need not necessarily be, um, and you don't, and no one is stopping you from um, associating with devotees beyond your counselee group. So therefore, counselor system is a is a facility that is provided where you can see that where you can seek that like-minded affectionate association. But in case if you don't find it there, you are not uh, you are then you can seek it elsewhere. Prabhupada has built a house in which the whole world can live. So if you don't find it in one small room in that house, you check it out in the next room, uh, like that, I would say. That's my understanding. Is that okay, Prabhu? Aranya Vihari Prabhu. I will unmute you. Yes, Prabhu. Is that okay?
Very nicely and in a simplified manner. Actually, you have explained it. So I'm very much satisfied. But just, I mean, my question was that in an institute like ISKCON,
Mhm.
where this kind of a systematic approach is there, so especially on a sadhaka platform, sometimes, I mean, of course, there will be no, you can say, a kind of a light nahi jal jayega that yes, okay, this is my Sajati Sangha or this is not. So, but yes, as you mentioned, I mean, the very first line, what you said, ki jisse man milega, I mean, you will naturally feel attracted to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm quite satisfied with the answer. Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
thank you. So I see Jagannath's hand was up. I'm just searching for him. I am unmuting Jagannath. Yes, Jagannath, can you speak?
Jagannath, go ahead, ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Jagannath, Hare Krishna. What's it?
Why, when Krishna was born in Vrindavan, and he used to spend his time in Vrindavan, and he only hold Govardhan for 7 days, then why is Govardhan more better than Vrindavan?
Hey, it is not more better than Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, Govardhan is also in Vrindavan only. In Vrindavan, Govardhan is the best. So it's not a comparison between Vrindavan and Govardhan. It is rather in Vrindavan, uh, Govardhan is very glorious. So definitely, Govardhan is not better than Vrindavan. Actually, Govardhan is in Vrindavan. So therefore, and also Govardhan serves Krishna in many, many, many different ways. It gives a lot of pleasure to Krishna. So therefore, Govardhan is very glorious in Vrindavan, like that. Is it okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, so any other? Okay, I see one question typed here. Prabhu, I have heard that taste comes by Kripa, Krishna Kripa or Vaishnav Kripa. So steadiness comes later in this case. Could you please explain? Yes, of course, the whole path of bhakti is Kripa only, but definitely in order to reach Nishta, our endeavor is a very important aspect to it. And when we endeavor, without endeavor directly, we cannot reach steadiness. And by endeavor, I don't mean endeavor without Kripa. Kripa is always there. In fact, it is our endeavor which attracts Kripa. So purely by our endeavor, we cannot get any taste or capture Krishna or attain steadiness in our practice. But our sincere endeavor can certainly attract the um, Kripa or mercy of Vaishnavas and Krishna. So in that way we can move forward. So is that okay? Shri Gopinath Pran Prabhu. Okay. So I have another question. Ours is basically preaching movement. So more stress is given for spreading the Krishna consciousness. In that race, sometimes it becomes difficult to stop and internalize Krishna consciousness. As you said, once we go deeper in Krishna consciousness, once we go deeper in Krishna consciousness, we will have so much taste. We just focus on personal sadhana, then going out for preaching. How to reconcile this? No, these are certainly not um, mutually exclusive things. That if this happens, you should not you cannot do the other thing. Um, it is just like to wait, pause, and internalize. Like while you are preaching, if you are pausing and internalizing, means you when you are concentrating on your own sadhana or your own sangha, um, then it only nourishes you more to go out and preach nicely. So therefore, this is like, you sharpen the pencil and write, and then you sharpen the pencil and then write again, then you sharpen the pencil and write. So both sharp, you cannot ask either I will sharpen or I will write. You will have to do both. If you don't sharpen, then you can't write for long. And if you keep on sharpening and don't write, then nothing will get written. So both are important. So these are definitely not mutually exclusive events, both can be done. But one should uh, maturely, under guidance, do both. Mm. And one of the symptoms of progressing and internalizing the process is actually getting that genuine interest to go out and share that compassion with others. So therefore, the more one gets internally pure, as Prabhupada said, purity is the force. One will get the force to actually preach, the inspiration to preach also. So therefore, these are certainly not mutually exclusive things. So these are very much complementary. So you do one, it enhances the other, like that. So if you have a follow-up question, you can still type. Prabhuji, can you also describe Snigdha in detail, like you just described Sajatiya with reference to Aranya Vihari Prabhu's question? Snigdha means affection. So Srila Rupa Goswami says a good association means Sajatiya Ashe Snigde Sadhu Sangha Swatovare. He says four elements of good association, or inspiring association, is Sajatiya Ashe, there must be like-mindedness. Then Snigde means there must be an affection. And the third is Sadhu Sangha. So you may be like-minded, you may have affection for each other, but you may not be like-minded in any devotional activity. You may both like to sit and watch cricket. So that is like-mindedness. But Rupa Goswami is not talking about that kind of like-mindedness. He's talking about like-mindedness for performing devotional activities. Therefore, he clarifies Sadhu Sangha. And the fourth aspect he says is Swato Vare. Swato Vare means that association should be more advanced than us, or even if it is an equal association, it must be a mutually inspiring association. So that is the meaning of Swato Vare. So you come together, spend time together. At the end of it, both the devotees feel, I feel so inspired in my Krishna consciousness. Like that. I feel so grateful for the other person, and I feel so inspired in my Krishna consciousness. So that is Swatovari. So these are the four aspects of a good association that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Next question. If a person is not in association of devotees, but is associating more often with Shastras, how will this help in being steady? The Shastras say associate with devotees. So if one is associating with Shastras and with a willingness to follow the Shastras, then he will associate with devotees. Actually, ultimately, the key for progress in Krishna consciousness is in the association of devotees only. So that's what the Shastras always emphasize. Bhagavatam is filled with the glorification of association of devotees. So therefore, if one is taking association of Shastras, he should naturally be inspired to take association of devotees. And in the association of devotees, he will take association of Shastras, because that is the proper way of taking association of Shastras. So that is my understanding. So I don't see any further questions or hands are not up. So I think let's move forward and start the next thing that we will discuss. I will just share the screen with you. So we will discuss Introduction to Manasiksha by Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. This is a very beautiful introduction that he gives. He's basically going to inspire our appetite for studying this book. So, so you can hopefully you are able to see the slides on your screen. So we will just quickly go through this. Maharaj writes a very personal introduction. He shares his personal experience, very, very inspiring actually. He says, Maharaj says, I read Manasiksha many years ago with various learned commentaries, but it struck me only recently how essential this book is. At that time, Maharaj says, many years back, at that time, I had removed myself a little bit from my normal busy preaching pace, doing extensive studies into our philosophy and into the question of how to present Krishna consciousness to a post-modern audience. So he was wondering, what should I do to equip myself to present Krishna consciousness to a post-modern audience? This was his thinking. So he was thinking, do we have in our tradition a guidebook to bhakti in its different stages? A book which will bring a person from the beginning to perfection. So he was asking, what is there a book that can guide a practitioner from the beginning stage to the stage of perfection? So he was thinking in that way. As I was asking and looking around, essentially to find a book which would save me the tremendous work of writing something myself, I again and again came upon Manasiksha. So Maharaj was thinking, oh, if in our parampara there is no book which is systematically presenting how one can go from the beginning stage to the topmost stage, then maybe I should sit, study all the Acharya's works and write a book myself, so that it can be of help to the devotees who are looking for a paddhati. Paddhati means a gradual manual which helps us to gradually progress from one stage to the next stage to the next stage, like that. So at that time, Maharaj says, I came upon this book again and again. He came upon this book, Manasiksha. But Maharaj probably thought, oh, how can you understand, just in 12 verses, Manasiksha is just one bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just 12 verses. So he might be thinking, how is it possible that just in 12 verses, I can understand how to go from the stage of Shraddha to Prema? Seems very unrealistic, he was thinking. At that point of time, he met Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, and Ravindra Swarup Prabhu told him, Manasiksha is the guidebook which takes us to full Krishna consciousness. But still Maharaj says, I was still a little doubtful whether or not this is really the book, the guidebook to Krishna consciousness. So he was thinking, already before meeting Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, many times when he was searching for such a book, he again and again came across Manasiksha. He couldn't believe. Then Ravindra Swarup Prabhu came and told him, Manasiksha is that book. He still could not believe. Then he received a letter from one of Prabhupada's senior disciples, Srimati Mataji. And Srimati Mataji wrote to His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, and she quoted a statement from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma. And in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Manasiksha is the paddhati for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Paddhati means a step-by-step guide to progress. So if you want to know where I am and how can I step by step progress from one stage to the next stage to the next stage. He says Manas Siksha is that book. And he says that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his commentary to Manas Siksha called Bhajan Darpan, or the mirror of Bhajan, that when a living entity has understood that it is his prime duty in life to develop his Krishna consciousness, when he has awakened his faith in this understanding, then he will ask how to do it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Bhajan Darpan, which we'll be seeing very soon, he says, if a person has developed faith in the process, Adau Shraddha, then the natural question will be, how can I progress on this path? So this is the natural question. And the response to this question is the Manas Siksha book. Manas Siksha will answer this question. If we, the readers, and I have this question and have awakened some faith that we should develop our Krishna consciousness, then we are qualified to hear the secrets of this book. So here Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj says, what is the qualification for studying Manas Siksha? Because I remember when I was offering the online courses, self-evaluation tools or rediscovering Vaidhi Bhakti and other such courses, one of the common, I used to quote from Manas Siksha because that was one of the books I was studying at that time and discussing with other devotees, and I felt very inspired. So I shared some sections from that book in our courses, and I got a few devotees started asking me, can we read this book? Are we qualified to read this book? Because Raghunath Das Goswami has written. Raghunath Das Goswami is our Prayojanacharya. So, and the other books that he has written, certainly, very esoteric books, Vilapa Kusumanjali and other such books that he has written, very, very esoteric. One cannot read them early in their devotional life. And Manas Siksha also sounds quite esoteric. So are we qualified to study this book? This was a common question which I was getting again and again. Here Srila Sachinandan Maharaj at the outset, in the introduction part of this Manas Siksha only, he says that if you have developed some faith in Krishna consciousness, and if you really would like to know how you can progress on this path of Krishna consciousness, then you are qualified to hear the secrets of this guidebook. So now, if any one of you feels that you don't have these two qualifications, you don't have faith in bhakti, which cannot be, because why would you then take your precious time out and come to hear this discussion? You would not. And second thing is, if you would, do you have a desire to progress in bhakti? Do you want to know how to progress? I am sure everyone wants. I am sure practically everyone who is there in this session would have that desire. So therefore, Srila Sachinandan Maharaj says, oh, you are qualified to hear the secrets that have been presented in this book. So at the outset, I would like to tell you, this is not such an esoteric book. If you are qualified to read Nectar of Instructions, you are certainly qualified to read Manas Siksha. So then Maharaj says, he shares a story from his own childhood. He says that when he was a young boy, some sections I may not directly read, just so that you don't feel bored that I'm just reading. So Maharaj shares a story from his childhood. He grew up in Germany, and when he was in school, there was a very strong rumor that you could actually make gold through an alchemical process. So therefore, Maharaj got very curious. Maharaj said, okay, teach me about it. How can I make gold? Then he took all his friends. They went to a cellar. Cellar means a basement, underground chamber where others cannot come. It's a secluded place. So they went to the cellar And Maharaj's friend Lawrence, he brought all those things that were mentioned in that book, how to make gold through this alchemical process. So they put everything together and they were doing this experiment. They were very eagerly anticipating that they will get gold, but suddenly that whole thing exploded on their face, and for the next 2 weeks all of them were injured and they could not go to school. They didn't get any gold. But Maharaj says, but I remember right from my childhood, I was extremely curious to get some guidebook for getting something very valuable. So Maharaj shares his own experience. This desire of mine to get something valuable, a means to get something valuable, this desire has been there in me right from the childhood, he says. Then he says, when I stumbled upon this Manasiksha, Maharaj writes, see, Sachinandan Swami, you have now found what you are looking for as a child. So he thought like that. You have really found something to get the highest value. And Maharaj says, very important, very beautiful line. Maharaj says, I practice according to these guidelines. So Maharaj says, since the time I received this Manasiksha book, I have been practicing my own Krishna consciousness. I practice according to the guidelines given in Manasiksha. This is Maharaj's candid admission. And Maharaj, in a very poetic way, he says, once I was finishing a month's time in a kind of private alchemical laboratory where I tried to do something with this Manasiksha. So can you believe? Just 12 verses, of which one is a Falashruti, just 11 verses, and a devotee of the caliber of His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, he went and he took 1 month to study this book. You might wonder, 11 verses, how long it takes? If you sit maybe in a couple of hours, you can memorize the whole 11 verses. So Maharaj took 1 month. He says in his own private alchemical laboratory, he was trying to do something with this Manasiksha. And Maharaj says, I found miracles developing just by instructing my mind with these verses. So Mana Siksha. Siksha means instructions, and Mana is mind. So Mana Siksha are the instructions for the mind. So Raghunath Das Goswami, here he says, he promises that after the 11 verses, becoming a follower of Sri Rupa and his companions, one who with a sweet voice loudly recites these 11 supreme verses which give instructions to the mind and strives to understand all of their meanings completely, obtains the incomparable jewel of worshipping Sri Sri Radha and Krishna in the forests of Gokul. So this is the Falashruti. He says, all you need to do is to chant these 11 verses, follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami and his companions, and strive to understand the inner meaning of these instructions. He says, you will get the opportunity to worship Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. But in the very next line, His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj drops a bomb. He says, now at the very outset, I will be extremely blunt. Why is he saying this? He says, as we follow Raghunath Das Goswami, you will see some open wounds in your heart and mind into which the words of Raghunath Das Goswami will go. He says, just like if you have had a fresh wound, and in that fresh wound you apply some chili powder or salt, it will be burning like hell. Of course, Raghunath Das Goswami's words are not chili powder, certainly. You can say this like tincture or some medicine which is applied to an open wound, which is very painful, but it actually cures the wound very fast. So he says, when you start hearing the instructions of Raghunath Das Goswami, you will start seeing some open wounds within your heart and mind, and the words of Raghunath Das Goswami will penetrate those wounds. And he says, it will not be easy. You will have to be very honest, because he presents a deep psychological analysis of the obstacles we face on our path, and it will be embarrassing. So we all, I personally say that it is very embarrassing. It was very embarrassing to me. What to speak of hearing, what to share when I myself am struggling with many of these anarthas. Very difficult to, very embarrassing, and Raghunath Das Goswami is very blunt. But I realize, if I don't take this medicine, I'm going to rot in this material world. So I might as well tolerate this embarrassment, so that so it is like you have joined mm, you know uh, classes for cracking your IIT JEE exam, and you are not understanding some concepts, uh, and you feel like, if I ask the teacher, then he may embarrass me, like that. And if thinking like that for the whole 2 years, you don't ask any question, and don't get any of your doubts clarified, what is the chance that we will pass the JEE exam? Rather, it is better to be shameless, get our be embarrassed, thoroughly embarrassed, uh, and actually get those wounds healed through the piercing words of Raghunath Das Goswami. Alone, it's very difficult, but together, we can get the strength to tolerate. It becomes, the devotees act as cushion to help us tolerate the embarrassing moments that we will go through while going through this book. But Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj says, however, I can encourage you, because at the end of going through Manasiksha, you will have love of Godhead in your heart. So this is the promise that Sachinandan Maharaj gives. The one who practiced, one who experimented with this Manasiksha for 1 full month in his private alchemical laboratory, he shares that it will be very embarrassing, but don't run away, please, because at the end of this Manasiksha, you will have love of Godhead in your heart. So that's a very soothing, encouraging thing. We have tolerated so many embarrassments to achieve so many different goals, to achieve Krishna Prem. Sachinandan Maharaj is requesting us, please tolerate this embarrassment for a while, like that. Manasiksha means instructions to the mind. He is using a technique of Vaishnava writers to address all of their readers by addressing their own minds. So this is a very common technique, like all the acharyas use. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written, Ore man bhalo nahi, sorry, this is Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Ore man bhalo nahi lage ye samsar, he says. Oh my dear mind, oh, there is nothing very fascinating in this material world. Don't you understand? Like that. Or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written, Dushta mana tumi kishera Vaishnava. Oh, wicked mind, what kind of Vaishnava are you? Like that. They have personified the mind and addressed the mind. For many purposes, one of the prominent purpose is to indicate, oh, you are not this mind, because many times we identify with our own mind. So therefore, you personify that mind and keep that person as a separate person, and you address him, oh mind, my dear friend, like that. So that way, we understand that we are not this mind. We are using the tool of material mind to perceive things in a material way. So therefore, this technique is used by many Vaishnava writers to address their own minds. In the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada describes Krishna consciousness as a culture of mind. It's a kind of cultivation, Prabhupada says. This means we should gradually train our minds so that throughout the 24 hours of the day, we can't think of anything other than Krishna. So that is the kind of cultivation. Now we know it is very difficult to train the stubborn mind to always think of Krishna 24 hours a day. We know that. We all are struggling in various different levels. Arjuna himself said, Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam. Tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. My dear Krishna, I can stop the wind, but I cannot stop the turbulent mind. What are you expecting me to do? Huh? But Maharaj says, Krishna is a good teacher. And he answers Arjuna's objection in a very systematic way. He says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam. No doubt, my dear Arjuna, that it is very difficult to control the mind. But abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. If you have the right practice and right kind of detachment, you can definitely control the mind. So practice and detachment. And Maharaj says, so this Manasiksha does exactly these two things. It gives us a suitable practice and it helps us detach ourselves from material things. So what is the gradual process that we can follow? What is the suitable practice and what is the gradual way of detaching ourselves from material things? So this Abhyasa and Vairagya, these two things is essentially what Manasiksha gives. Even though when Krishna mentions this Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate, he was indicating Ashtanga Yoga in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But here Manasiksha gives the pure devotional counterpart of that Abhyasa and Vairagya, like that. So Maharaj says, to get the greatest benefit from this book, we need to keep in mind that there are two powerful forces in this world. Maharaj says, two powerful forces are Kama and Prema. He says Kama means not just attraction between man and woman, but Kama means any desire for enjoying separately for sense gratification separate from Krishna. And Prema means Krishnendriya Preeti Vancha. Dhare Prema Naam. So Atmendriya Preeti. Atmendriya Preeti is Kama, desire for one's own gratification of one's own senses. But Krishnendriya Preeti, that is Prema. He says, Maharaj says, I think all sadhakas have to deal with Kama. Because Kama is the basis of this world, says Rigveda. And this desire for enjoyment, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyanantascha buddhayo avyavasayinam. So for those who are attached to Kama, their intelligence is many branched. It is running in different directions, thinking how I can gratify my senses. But Prema is single focus. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, therefore, is possible only in the path of bhakti. And Krishna's Maharaj says, to some extent, these two forces struggled in a sadhaka's life. We discussed this in detail in our previous courses. Those of you who had attended those courses, we had discussed this struggle between desires born out of our faith, Shraddha, and desires born out of our conditioning, Swabhava. So this is what he is talking as Kama and Prema. That which we may like to do, that which we may love to do, may be forbidden in the scriptures. Bhakti Pratikul. And that we hate to do may be recommended by the scriptures as Bhakti Anukul. And there is a constant struggle between these two. There is a voice in our heart which tells us, follow the scriptures, chant Hare Krishna, concentrate on Krishna, and so on. And there is another voice that says, yeah, 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 yeah. How theoretical, how impractical. Be real, Prabhu. Hmm? You have to be on the platform of reality, like that. It's very interesting that these two drives, kama and prema, have something in common. What is that? Both have the same verbal roots, similar verbal roots. Kam and prem both mean desire. So he says, so therefore, when we want to develop love for Krishna, then we have to learn to do the practices which the Manasiksha is going to instruct us. But if we want to develop kama, the desire to enjoy, then we will look down upon the body and mind. But Manasiksha will train us, will take our sight away from the body and mind, and will help us to look upwards towards spiritual things. And when we start looking upwards, gradually this will enhance our faith more and more and more and more. And with the enhancement of faith, purification will also happen, and eventually we will touch the realm of Hladini Shakti, like that. So I can direct my attention towards selfish enjoyment, kama, where I can desire woman, gold, ice cream, pizza, like that, whatever that um, enhances my sense gratification, and it will degrade my consciousness. Or I can choose to follow the instructions of Manasiksha and start looking upwards. So therefore, this is how the first verse starts. If I remove my attachment from woman, gold, ice cream, pizza, paneer tikka, whatever it may be, then where should I repose it? So that's where the first verse starts about. So I will not tell you what it is, but as I look upwards, I will feel in contact with the spiritual objects and persons. I will feel some bhakti and be pulled upwards in a very nice way. These are the secrets of bhakti. So basically, he says, we have a choice. Which energy do I want to control my life? Do I want my life to be controlled by the degrading material energy, or do I want my life to be controlled by the instructions of books like Manasiksha, so that I can progress towards the goal of Krishna Prem, like that? So he says that when we train our minds through the instructions of Manasiksha, first we will attract the Karuna Shakti, the mercy potency of Krishna, and eventually Karuna Shakti will catch our hands and take us and hand us over to the Hladini Shakti. Radharani will take us further when we reach the stage of Bhava. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Instruction, he says, in Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. One's desires and ambitions develop according to the company one keeps. It is often said that a man is known by his company, and if an ordinary man associates with devotees, he will certainly develop his dormant Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada writes this in the 6th verse of Nectar of Instruction purport. He writes this. So Maharaj says, I want to take this statement a little bit further. If you allow your mind to associate with the beautiful instructions of Raghunath Das Goswami, your whole existence will be transformed. This is the promise that Maharaj is giving. It really works. Association accompanied by mental practice is so important. So association of Vaishnavas is absolutely important. And mental practice means whatever Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is going to encourage us to do, and also the generic process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. If that mental practice is not there, just staying in association will not help. He says, if you don't have this mental practice, if you are not chastising your mind, if you are just pampering your mind, then the mind will dig your grave. So if you don't have this mental practice and you always associate with material sense objects and material thoughts, then your Krishna consciousness is only a hallucination, he says. So just like I mean, I'm sure you must have heard this story many times. So I will nevertheless share. Some of you may not know also. So it is mentioned that once there was a small boy who lost his parents very early in his life. So he was raised by his aunt, and because he was without his parents, his aunt showered him with lot of love and affection and never bothered to correct uh, that boy. So he eventually grew up to be a severely pampered child, and he grew up to be um, a burglar, dacoit, thief, murderer, all kinds of bad habits, because his aunt never bothered to correct him. And one day he was arrested, and seeing the big list of crimes that he had committed, they had decided to hang him to death. So when he was just about to be hung, they asked him, "What is your last wish?" He said, "I would like to speak with my aunt." So the aunt was summoned. She was crying profusely. So he called her closer and he said, "Can you please show me your ears?" And then she showed, and he literally bit a big piece of that ear, and she started screaming. And she asked, "What's wrong with you?" And then he said, "You know what? You are the reason why I am in this position. If only you would have corrected me while I was young, then I won't have to be standing here ready to be hung. So therefore, you are responsible for my situation." So we don't want to be regretting in this way at the end of our lives. So therefore, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is kind enough to give us just 11 verses to train our mind in such a way that it can we can gradually train our mind to love Krishna at the very soon. So that is a very brief but powerful introduction to this Manasiksha book given by Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. So at this point, I will pause. We still have some time for question and answers. So, so if there are any questions, you can either type or you can raise your hands. We still have 15 minutes. So I don't see any hands up, or would anyone like to type a question or raise your hands? If you can raise your hands, I can unmute you and you can ask your question. Hopefully you all are there still awake. Any quick comments, questions, discussions? Oh, there is one interesting question. Could you once again explain? I mean, explain what? I don't know. If you, I mean, the whole thing, or if you can please clarify, because if I start explaining the whole thing, it will take another. Oh, he's clarifying here. What is the meaning of association with mental practice is important. So that's what we try to understand through that story. Association of devotees, and in the association we should have a mental practice, in the sense we should have a proper way of training the mind to love Krishna. So if we allow the mind to freely run over, then it will become very difficult. So we cannot give that kind of a free rein to our mind. We have to try to train the mind in such a way that it can like basically, as Maharaj said, abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. So mental practice means Abhyasa and Vairagya. Training the mind in the right practices and training the mind to refrain from those which are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. So basically, training the mind to act on the pulling the mind from the platform of raga and dvesha, bringing it to the platform of anukulyasa sankalpo pratikulyasa varjanam. Basically, the mind accepts and rejects. Currently, the mind accepts whatever it likes, rejects whatever it dislikes. But the mind should accept whatever is favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject whatever is unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. So this is actually mental practice, and this actually needs proper training. We cannot just what to say, decide that from tomorrow I will do only that which is favorable for Krishna consciousness. We cannot just do like that. It needs a proper practice, and what that practice is, that is what here now Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is going to explain. Okay, anything else quickly you would like to ask before we wind up today's session? I understand. Okay, there is Aranya Vihari Prabhu's hand up. I will unmute him. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, Prabhu, I have unmuted you.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, as you were mentioning that nectar of instruction and mana shiksha, they go in parallel. So,
More or less.
I mean, of course, in the due course of the discussion, we will get to know. But as of now, it seems a bit inconceivable because, like, if I think about the third verse, Yadichera
Your voice is,
Sambrajabhuvi Saragam.
your
So that
voice is
was,
not very clear. Your voice is not very clear. Can you?
is it better now, Prabhu?
It's little.
Hare Krishna. Is it
Yeah,
better
yeah.
now?
Now it's better. Yeah.
Okay, so Prabhu, what I was saying is that as of now, this seems a bit inconceivable because if I think about the third verse of Mana Shiksha, like Yadichera Vasam Braja Bhuvi Saragam, the third verse is of nectar of instruction. Is it this way or exactly the flow is similar to nectar of instruction? Krishna?
Sorry. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
Sorry, I lost my connection for a second. So but I heard your question. They are not. So in some ways they are parallel, and in some ways they are slightly different also. So you cannot exactly map verse 1 of NOI and verse 1 of Manasiksha and verse 2 of NOI with verse 2 of Manasiksha like that. It is not in that sense, but definitely there are very strong parallels between these two. As and when we go through the verses of Manasiksha, we will try to see the parallels. Is that okay, bro?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? If I don't get, if there are no further questions, I think we will end today's discussion here. So thank you very much for your patient listening. I am ending 9 minutes early. Generally, it is very uncharacteristic of my discussions generally. I generally tend to go a little bit over time. But today, because tomorrow is a very auspicious day, Janmashtami, I'm sure you all must be very excited. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. It's going to be quite tiring also. So I would like to end early today. So wish you all a very, very happy Janmashtami. I know it will be difficult because most of you will have to stay indoors and watch it online, but nevertheless, we can tolerate it so that we value the association of devotees, personal association of devotees much more. That is, I think, one very strong positives that we can take from this whole COVID thing, that we will not take devotees, we will no longer take devotees association for granted. So wish you all a very, very happy Janmashtami, hoping to have your association next Tuesday. And till then, please stay safe and have a very pleasant Janmashtami. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Manas Siksha ki jai. Hare Krishna.